one from midfield. Nice seam for Nick Holley. He's going to keep running away from people. Nick Holley, middle of the field, end zone, touchdown. 50 yards for the score. No concern whatsoever for Houston. Right back in the game. On the ground, here's Butler. Wow, all sorts of time. He does a pirouette into the end zone. Touchdown and right into the crowd. The man can read the sign. Wants to throw for it. Steps up and fires. It's Phillips. Down by the goal line and in. Touchdown, Roughnecks. Second of the day, ninth of the season for Cam Phillips, the XFL leader.
Down in H-Town, we don't brag or boast, but down in H-Town, we do it bigger than most. And down in H-Town, you could try if you want, but come to H-Town, we probably send you home.
What's going on, football fans? This is the XFL show, and this is a post-game recap of the Roughnecks staying undefeated against the Dragons with their victory 32-23. This is Bryant.
And like taxes, death, and P.J. Walker to Cam Phillips in the end zone, inevitability, I am Alan. That was a comeback, Bryant. That's the best team in the XFL. The Houston Roughnecks.
It was a comeback. I don't say like the inevitability because last week Cam Phillips didn't have the greatest of games.
But it's inevitable. Inevitable. He has his big moment now. A week later, he's not going to go too long. We saw that was such a great game from Cam Phillips to really just end it. Although it kind of didn't end exactly the way we were hoping.
Yeah, Alan, let's get that out of the way now because I think it's something that we need to address. The whole world is going to be talking about it, especially after the weekend. 2 seconds, maybe 3, who knows? We'll never know, but it should have been clocked. It should have been one more play for the Dragons from, I think it was a 22-yard line with down 9, and you know that's only a one-score game in the XFL. You know, you hate to see it because it was such a well-officiated game throughout the entire game. To see this happen at the very end is going to overshadow the game. So, but I guess, was there anything they could do, couldn't do? I mean, by the time they figured out, you know, most of the teams and personnel were already off the field.
Yeah, so this was unfortunate because, like you said, the worst part about it was I thought the officials and replay official in particular did a great job in this game, making everything flow, making all the right calls. It felt like a pretty good game in terms of how it was officiated. But then at the end, it just felt like they weren't even trying. And the explanation we got, at least on the broadcast when ESPN was able to, lock down Wes Booker, the explanation was, well, we can't wrangle all these guys around, but they were all in the building. So obviously we're going to have to hear more of an explanation than that as fans, as football fans, as bettors on the game too, who are probably furious that if you had Seattle, you thought maybe they would have had one chance. I'm of the opinion that Seattle had zero chance if they played that last play of this game, but that still doesn't matter. You want to see the game and that gun gets shot at the end at the right moment. And there was probably 3 seconds left in this one, which would have been good for one more play. And like you said, 9-point game, it's a one-score game. So I can't wait to just hear, the further explanation. I want to hear, hopefully Dean Blandino will speak something about this. Hopefully we'll be able to know a little bit more as to why they didn't attempt to bring everybody back out there. Because I understand why they let everyone go to the locker room, Bryant. I just, as a football fan, want to know how the logistics of, is it that difficult to wrangle everybody out there for one more play? It's probably hectic. Guys are taking their pads off slowly. Referees are already in the locker room, but you feel like they could have probably pulled that off. It didn't happen. It's going to have to be discussed throughout the week. I'm hoping that it doesn't overshadow what was really an awesome game. To see the Roughnecks come back like that, see Seattle fight tooth and nail. It was a fantastic football game we're about to break down.
Yeah, well, let's break down that game because we'll talk all about it on Tuesday. I think more and more will come out. We'll have more information, like you said, with all those questions. Because a lot of questions to be had. Alan, you say that Seattle had 0% chance if they got the ball back. Well, here's the thing: is they got 0% chance because they didn't get the ball back. So we'll never know specifically, but we'll talk about that more on Tuesday's episode. Alan, let's talk about this game because P.J. Walker did not look like P.J. Walker through basically, 2.5 quarters, maybe 3. Really not himself, throwing bad passes, got caught with an interception. some fumbles. It was just an off game from what we've seen PJ Walker. Everybody has them. We talk about it all the time, but just something you didn't expect from PJ Walker, especially not against the Seattle Dragons.
Well, I kind of expected it. I've been saying this guy looks like Brett Favre out there. He's a gunslinger. He takes risks, and they really haven't bit him at all this season. But in this game, they did. But the great thing about P.J. Walker is he's fearless, and he's determined, and he still went out there and had a fantastic game. Overall, he has over 350 yards passing. He threw for more touchdowns than interceptions, and he made the plays, like I've been saying, for Houston when they needed him. And I also love the fact that in this game, what Seattle did I thought was pretty clever in terms of what they showed June Jones and the offense. And what June and the great thing in this was June Jones was not afraid to just say, all right, let's run the ball. He had two guys go over 50 yards rushing in this game who were very efficient. James Butler, was running into the end zone and jumping into the crowd constantly in this game. Friend of the show, James Butler. And I thought Houston really adjusted to what Seattle showed him and also responded to PJ Walker's, rough patch in this game, which was extended. It was until the fourth quarter that he was really, back in his full MVP J form. This game, though, was so fun to watch because of what Seattle did as well. They came in there and they put pedal to the metal. They have guys on this team that grew up in Texas, that grew up in Houston, like Trey Williams, and they went out there, they executed, they played tough. But again, I think Jim Zorn might have hurt them a little bit in this game, Bryant. There were some moments where he was slow to get play calls in there, and at the end of the game, those 3-and-outs totally killed them. All the momentum gone. Seattle could only capitalize off so many turnovers until their offense needed to make some moves, needed to keep up with what Houston was doing, because Houston, even after turnovers, wouldn't let up. Seattle's offense kind of ran out of steam.
Yeah, BJ Daniels, lit a spark last week for this team, and he did it this week again. I will say he didn't have the greatest stats game, 14 for 22, 114 yards, no TDs and an interception in the air. He did have one on the ground, and I believe a 2-point conversion, if I'm not mistaken, as well. PJ Walker, though, he did have a great game, Alan. You mentioned more TDs and interceptions. He did have that fumble, so his turnover ratio was pretty much even with his touchdowns. 27 for 38, 351 yards. But Jim Zorn, and we've talked about it, and I don't know if it's just he's not used to it. I can't make excuses for the man, but I'm trying to understand what's going on, because that play call is coming in slowly and very slow, and his players are becoming more and more irate with him. And you can see it on the field. It's not being hidden anywhere because these play calls are not coming in. They're not getting time to adjust, to read defenses, to possibly pick up a blitz. He's leaving his O-line out there to figure things out on the fly. It's not easy for them. So Jim Zorn, again, we mentioned it, was not supposed to be the play caller for this team. He is at the moment, and I don't know if there's somebody else that can take that role from him. But his play calling is not bad. It's just the way, the operational process, I guess you could say, about it all, Alan. Just not a great offensive production day. But also, they didn't really need to. They had the ball on the 1-yard line and had to score a touchdown. I mean, that's just, a bonus for them. They did everything they could, but you're right, those 3-and-outs at the end of the game, just disastrous for this team that really, looked great at times, but also looked like the Seattle Dragons that we've seen all season long.
Yeah, a team that could play with any team in the XFL, just can't break through and beat any team in the XFL. I was a fan of the play calls, 22 zipper, get the ball to your running backs, run the ball on the goal line. It was great. But yeah, not getting the play in until you're at like 17 seconds on the play clock, it just seems inefficient. Whereas the Roughnecks, June Jones, that's the great thing. We get to watch these coaches in their element. We see which coaches are, in a groove, are feeling it, why teams are winning, and it very much reflects with the coach's demeanor. June Jones was cool, calm, collected this whole game, as was PJ Walker after some bad mistakes. And you saw that reflected in the third down efficiency. Bryant, 8 for 11 on third down for Houston. I mean, that is ridiculous, and you're rarely going to lose when you're that efficient on third down and you keep converting and you keep responding to your own mistakes. And like I said at the top, inevitable. I never had a doubt in my mind Houston was going to pull this one out, even down 14-0 to start this game. I mean, I actually laughed out loud when they showed on the ABC broadcast that the line now switched over to -2 for Seattle, because what Are you kidding? This June Jones offense doesn't care about down, distance, or the score.
Casual bettors, Alan. Casual bettors. That's all it's for, man. Come on. We sit here and watch these games every single second. We're watching the New York Dallas game as we're recording this episode. We understand. But you're right. Was there a moment, I think, if PJ Walker continues to play the way he's playing, they're not going to win this game. They need PJ Walker to shape up. And he did. Like you say, inevitably, I guess you could say, PJ Walker did exactly what the Houston Roughnecks needed him to do. Alan, defensively, both teams had their moments, but at the same time, it was a bit of an offensive battle on this end, except for the turnovers on the Dragon side, but those were some bad throws by PJ Walker as well, so I wouldn't give him full credit for it.
Well, the one pick was ridiculous. Strongest fingers.
That wasn't pretty. Yeah, you're right.
In the XFL, Jordan Martin with that crazy out of bounds diving interception. But yeah, the other one that was almost taken to the house. That was just a really boneheaded throw by PJ Walker, and Seattle capitalized on that one. But their defense really was. They were giving up big third downs all game long, and they showed up with the turnovers, but they were bending a lot in this game. And against Houston, bending and trying not to break is maybe the toughest thing a team could try to do in the XFL. We're learning they will break you. 32 points. I mean, I can't believe Santos Ramirez went back out on the field after what 𝐦𝐞𝐢𝐚 did to him on that first Roughnecks touchdown. They still need to go pick up his jock strap off the field because he got jukey.
Well, there's time to do it if they need to. Don't worry, they still have time to do it. Yeah. Alan, you're right. The Roughnecks are almost like Novocaine, right? It's you don't need a lot of it, but just give it enough time, it'll always work out in the end. Houston goes to 5-0, Seattle 1-4. Looking forward to next week for both of these teams. You have Houston actually going to New York. It's going to be the Saturday morning game. And then you have Seattle going back home, hosting the Wildcats. Both teams in that game are going to be looking desperately for a victory, depending on the outcome of this New York-Dallas game. Houston, don't sleep on this New York team. We thought they were out of it, but now they're back in it. Putting up a good fight today and put up a good fight last week. So both teams have some work to do. PJ Walker obviously can't survive with those games going forward throughout the entire rest of the season. Yeah,
that's not, a game you want to have all the time, but the thing we're learning about Houston is that they are kind of, I feel, almost ahead, at least not head and shoulders, but ahead of everybody except maybe St. Louis. I think PJ Walker can maybe get away with that kind of game against at least half the league. But the cool thing about this league is that, like you said, Seattle's 1-5, and we're watching New York and Dallas right now. If New York wins this game, if LA loses tomorrow, Seattle's still, Bryant, 1-5, only a game out of playoff contention, and they still very much have tons to play for. They have half their season in front of them, and they've shown promise, and I think plenty of time to rectify the issues they have. I want to call them a good football team, but there's just some ingredient missing. Maybe we'll find that out in the second half of the season. But right now, they're, again, coming up short. Houston wins this one. PJ Walker, MVPJ, man. I cannot say enough about the guy's grit. And he had scouts out there watching him, too. Maybe that contributed to the nerves from the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks. But star of the week early on, got to go with Cam Phillips again, man. 10 receptions, $122, and 2 TDs. That guy is inevitable.
To associate the Seattle Dragons with something, they're like a chocolate chip cookie that if you had to put the sugar in a quarter a cup at a time, you forgot like one of the quarter cups. And so it's just not as sweet as you'd like it. They're still good. They're just not as good.
But yeah. I'm going to eat these. But honey, no one's around.
Man, they could be a little sweeter.
They could be better. If company was over, I would rave about how great these were, but they're just not as good. We can fix them before everybody comes over for our big cookie party next week. So maybe Seattle could do it for next week against LA.
They're getting closer and closer for sure. All right, Alan. Well, that's it for this game. That's our first recap of Week 5 here in the XFL. We'll have 3 more coming up for the rest of the weekend. I'll be in LA tomorrow, live from Dignity Health Park, where I'll be able to broadcast these recaps from there. Right.
I can't wait. I can't wait to get your live reacts from LA. And I'm glad that we're taking this one all the way to the end, Bryant, completing the show to the finish line, leaving no extra time on the clock, no doubt whatsoever. And we're doing that all weekend with the mini recaps, baby.
Yes, we are. We will take it all the way to the clock hits 4 zeros. All right. For Alan, this is Brian. This is the XFL show. Remember,